into all of the slides. Hello and welcome to my first webinar of 2025, Stress Less, Thriving in 2025 with Clarity and Calm. And we were just having a little personal chat about why it's so important for us to think about our nervous system and nervous system regulation. Underlying a lot of the health issues that we might experience, especially as women, our stress response, our adrenals, our hormones, they're all tied into a lot of those issues that can come up for us as women. So it's really, really important that we understand what the nervous system is all about and what happens within the nervous system when it goes into fight or flight, what can push your nervous system into fight or flight, and then what can we do to support the balance of the nervous system, and how we can nourish our nervous system with the right sort of nutritional and lifestyle choices. So it's important to understand that our level of stress that we experience in our body is something that we can have a lot of control of. Now, sometimes we can't control what goes on in the external environment around us and situations that we may find ourselves in and having to deal with. But if we are going through something like very stressful, we need to learn ways that we can actually support ourselves and keep the balance so that our body isn't completely thrown off kilter and we end up with other health conditions that we're having to seek support and advice for. So I've got some slides that I'm going to be sharing tonight, and we're going to go through each section together. So just bear with me. And also for those that are watching a replay of this, if I haven't met you, my name is Emma. Emma Aguirres now, formerly Emma Tippett. I've been a naturopath for 12 years and I'm really passionate about helping women and women's health. So let's get started. Bear with me. The not so tech savvy naturopath is attempting. Okay, here we go. And slideshow from beginning. All right. Okay. So stress less, thriving in 2025 with clarity and calm. Sounds amazing, doesn't it? I don't know about you, but you know, I certainly was thrown some curveballs in 2024 that really tested my ability to balance my nervous system and not succumb to stress associated vulnerabilities that I have. And that's one thing that's really important, understanding your vulnerabilities within your health, which we're going to dive into in the relevant section to that. But let's get started. So I think first, what's really important is to understand what stress is. So this is really open to subjective experience, meaning that we all have our own version of what we consider stress to be. I mean, there's some pretty obvious ones like, you know, stressful events that can happen in life, stressful circumstances that happen in life, stressful things that might go on within the relationships that we have. You know, there are some common things that we're going to know, yes, well, that is stressful, but it's really a very personal experience, stress. And a lot of the time, my female patients that I have, when I ask if they have a lot of stress or what does stress look like for them, some of them will say that they're not stressed, but they have a lot of signs of physiological stress going on within the body. So we will talk about that. We're going to dive into that in a little bit more detail in a little while. So what we want to think about are any external influences or experiences. Obviously, as I mentioned, we will have an idea about what we consider stress to be with the experiences that we might have in our life. So the external things are the things that are going on around us in our external environment. We can also have internal influences and experiences that we may find stressful. So this could be various emotional triggers or mental triggers, for example. You might have experienced something in the past, and an experience that you go through in the present moment might trigger something within you that is reminiscent of a past experience. So like a trauma kind of response. That is an internal influence. How we think about things and how we respond to things could cause stress in our body. So whether we have any negative self-talk, for example, or we have perceptions that are slightly negative, or we're experiencing too much worry or rumination, all of these things are what I would consider internal influences of stress. Then we look at physiological. So physiological stress is stress that's occurring because of a dysfunction or an imbalance that has occurred within the systems of the body. So we're going to talk in a lot more detail about these areas, but we can have nervous system dysregulation that our body experiences as physiological stress that stems from our gut health, can stem from our female sex hormones, our adrenals and regulation of cortisol, and neurotransmitter balance. So any kind of imbalances through these areas could put our body into physiological stress. So I'll give you an example of that. When some women, when they're in the second part of their menstrual cycle, they might experience more anxiety in their body, or they might experience insomnia, which is connected. Both of those things are nervous system connected symptoms or presentations, but it might not be due to any change that's happening in their external environment. It might just be because their hormones are out of balance. So that's really something that's important to understand. And we're going to talk about the hormones, as I mentioned, in a little bit more detail very soon. And then what we could put under the stress banner is any trigger for the fight or flight response. So we're going to go into what that actually is in a moment, but the fight or flight response is our internal stress response. And you might not have lots of external influences of stress that you would perceive as stressful in your life, but you might be rushing around every day. You might be having to drive in peak hour traffic, and you really just want to get home, and you're finding it's kind of making you feel a little bit worked up. You might be having 3-4 coffees a day. All of these things could potentially trigger your fight or flight response. So this could be happening on a daily basis, and you're not actually even aware of what's going on within your nervous system. So as you can see, stress is definitely open to our subjective experience, but it can be much more than our subjective experience as well. And that's why it's really important to understand your nervous system and the signs of nervous system dysregulation. Okay, so the stress response. Sorry. So what is happening in the body when the fight or flight response is triggered? So basically, stress triggers a cascade of physiological responses in the body. So all of those things that I have just mentioned previously about how your body perceives stress, okay? Primarily, it involves the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, so the HPA axis. Let's just keep it simple because that's a bit of a mouthful. When an individual experiences stress, the body releases cortisol and adrenaline. Now, these hormones are designed to help the body to cope with perceived threats. And in the short term, this is a healthy response to stress, okay? So, you know, our biological response is set up like that to help us to survive. So it's a survival mechanism. But when we've got chronic stress, so we're talking about chronic activation of fight or flight. So this could be happening multiple times a day, and I would consider this to be chronic stress. This will end up disrupting normal bodily functions eventually. So our body can only take so much. And when we think about the way that our pace of living is in our modern society, it's always go, 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 go. Unless you're very good and intentionally supporting your body to relax and rest and unwind from stress, a lot of the time we really are in this fight or flight state like day in, day out. And that is definitely going to lead to a lot of potential negative consequences for our health. Okay, sorry, just there we go. So what are the signs and symptoms of fight or flight? So this can be a wide range of things, but I'm just going to kind of go through a few. So feeling overwhelmed. When we're in fight or flight, we have this heightened sensation in the body, this heightened feeling of kind of stress in the body. And this can translate into feeling overwhelmed. Or if we think about where the default setting of our nervous system is that bar set pretty high so that we can tip into overwhelm really quickly. It only takes maybe one or two things going wrong in our day to tip us into feelings of being overwhelmed. So that's because there's nervous system dysregulation that's already kind of present, and we might be feeling a level of overwhelm quite quickly or easily. We could think about feeling irritable or having mood swings. So definitely fight or flight affects our mood. We could be, that irritable, sort of more reactive, or maybe feeling quick to anger. That could be a sign of the body being in chronic fight or flight. We could have physical kind of symptoms like racing heart, excess perspiration. These are, quite present when someone is either anxious or really in a lot of fight or flight. So they might be quite stressed at the time. Racing mind as well is another one. So a lot of women talk to me about, the mental load of things. And this is what happens when we take on so much. So depending on what phase of life you're in, if you're a young woman, it might be that you're juggling a lot of juggling a lot of things or pressures with work or relationships or social factors or health issues. If you're in a phase as life as a woman where you are having children, it might be issues around your health. Again, it could be the demands of motherhood. You might be working and trying to look after your kids as well. And, the level of what women take on upon themselves in their daily lives is sometimes like, is so much, it's so much, and no wonder the body is struggling to maintain balance, because we're constantly putting ourselves into fight or flight every single day. So some people really feel it in the gut, as women are more gut reactors when it comes to stress and the nervous system dysregulation. So we might experience symptoms in the gut, like we might feel that nausea or tense gut, or that kind of butterfly, unsettled feeling in the gut. We might have developed digestive issues, feeling like we can't digest food very well, or we're quite bloated after we eat, or we may have been diagnosed with IBS. So there's a functional gut issue going on there. The gut is a big area that we're going to cover later on, and understanding the connection to the nervous system. We might have sleeping issues. So this is a really common one with women who are in fight or flight a lot. So the more cortisol that your body excretes in fight or flight states or throughout the day, depending on what's going on for you throughout the day, if you think about you have a daily cortisol excretion or production that helps you to keep good energy, but you might be getting surges of cortisol based on fight or flight or your stress response in multiple times throughout the day. And the bigger the quota of cortisol production and output, the more it's going to take your body to relax at night and drop down those cortisol levels to a baseline where melatonin can actually kick in and help you to sleep. So a lot of women find that they have trouble getting to sleep. It's taking them a long time, or they're not falling into deep sleep. And pretty much every single time I see a woman for this issue in the clinic, we are working on adrenal regulation and trying to reduce cortisol. So it stems back to this chronic fight or flight state in the body. Hormonal imbalance is another sign. So especially in that luteal phase of your cycle, you might have more PMS kind of symptoms. You might have issues with your actual menstrual bleed, with pain or heavy bleeding. You might have a short cycle. So when it comes to hormonal imbalance, it really impacts your progesterone levels. And we will talk about that in a little bit more detail. So a lack of progesterone really affects your nervous system regulation. And obviously we also might experience fatigue. Like, it's really tiring to be in fight or flight all the time. Your body is directing all of its energy to that survival mechanism, and it's very depleting. So you're really going to deplete a lot of your nutrients and nutrition when your body's in a chronic state of fight or flight. Now that we've understood a little bit about fight or flight, what does it look like? What's going on in the body? Let's talk about the hidden toll of stress. So it might not be that hidden in terms of your experience, but there's some things that you might not realize that can lead to an experience of like chronic stress and the consequences of. So I will go as far as saying that chronic stress on the body, or chronic fight or flight in the body, which is a lot of, as I mentioned, women these days, it's a major driver for any of the current health conditions that you might be experiencing, because your body can't heal and rebalance itself when it's in fight or flight. Your body, in a survival mechanism, is not going to be able to heal itself. So your body can heal itself. Our bodies are so amazing and clever, and we have this inbuilt ability to heal, to regenerate, to restore. But when your body's in fight or flight, it's in a pro-inflammatory state. So it's going to be doing the opposite to that. It's not able to do that when you're in fight or flight. So a lot of our health conditions these days are driven by some form of inflammation, some form of dysregulation, potentially within the immune system as well. And it's just not going to be able to step back from that if your body is in fight or flight. We can also see that we can switch on our genetic weaknesses with chronic stress or chronic fight or flight. So when I say stress, I want you to think about fight or flight. That's the how I'm connecting that in. So given that we know that when your body is in fight or flight, based on whatever kind of triggers that we've sort of spoken about, this is a level of stress on the body. So stress is, if we think about epigenetics, epigenetics is the influence of our lifestyle on our genetics. And we all have genetic strengths and weaknesses. And basically, what stress is going to do is switch on your genetic weaknesses. I know the story that I was sharing before about my own experience of my own health crisis that was brought on by chronic stress and chronic fight or flight. It switched on a number of things in my body that weren't there before. So before that time in my life, before that issue that I experienced, I ate well, but I didn't have any intolerances. I had no issues with consuming certain things like gluten, for example. After my health issue, I became highly intolerant to gluten. I could not digest it whatsoever. My mum is a celiac, so there's a genetic weakness there when it comes to the breakdown of gluten and the immune system's response to that. Luckily, I didn't develop celiac disease, but potentially if I hadn't taken it out of my diet at that point, I might have developed celiac disease. I might have switched on that genetic weakness that happens when you become dysregulated and your immune system goes into that pro-inflammatory and potential autoimmune state. So understanding what your genetic strengths and weaknesses are is really important. And it's something that I would encourage you to think about, because that's where the cracks are going to show when your body's under stress. And that's really individual for everybody. So for me personally, when my body's under stress, my weakest links are my gut and my nervous system. It's always going to show up in those areas for me first. So when you know where your genetic weaknesses lie, you can be on the lookout for impacts. Now, you might not, with some of those genetic weaknesses, you might not see them. It might be many years of imbalance that has to take place to switch that on. So say, for example, when we're thinking about cardiovascular disease or other metabolic conditions like type 2 diabetes, like that might not be, you might not see the cracks starting to show in those areas, but kind of think about what's common in, say, the women, for example, of your family. Often when we have, say, women that experience endometriosis, there's more than one woman in their family that might experience that, or PCOS, another really common one. So these are where we can start to see the impacts of a lifestyle that is more pro-inflammatory. It's not serving you well in terms of what your body needs to thrive and flourish. So you need to understand that. The hidden toll of stress leads to imbalances in other areas of the body. So thinking about the gut, hormones, skin, immune system, and adrenals. So we will talk a little bit more about those more common areas, the gut and the hormones in particular. But basically what you need to understand is stress being the driver of dysregulation. It causes an immune response, which is pro-inflammatory. So it sends signals to your immune system to be in a pro-inflammatory state. So that's why we start to see things like acne for some people. It can be stress-related based on inflammation. We can see skin issues like eczema, psoriasis, these types of things. Usually there's a level of stress going on within the body that is switching the immune system on to be more pro-inflammatory. We can see issues within adrenal regulation. So we might start to have those sleeping issues, and then we might start to feel like, we're not feeling refreshed in the morning. We're waking feeling really fatigued and really tired because our cortisol is not actually kicking in the morning as it should, because everything is so dysregulated. And obviously with the gut, we're talking about gut-associated impacts of stress, like how we're digesting our food. And we'll talk about the balance of the microbiome and why that's so important to the nervous system as well. And your hormones as a woman. So we see an imbalance of hormones being very common when our body is under stress. So primarily, it's usually progesterone that becomes out of balance when our body is experiencing more stress. And that's because we use progesterone in the production of cortisol. So the more we need of it, the more progesterone we are using. And then our body will also down-regulate the production of sex hormones because of cortisol. So if you think about that survival, fight or flight is a survival mechanism. So the last thing the body is going to be focused on when we're in survival mode is reproduction. So it's going to down-regulate and use all of those resources to go into cortisol, adrenaline, and what we need to survive, like putting stored glucose into the bloodstream for energy. And it's not going to be focused on reproduction, what needs to happen there, because that's not an ideal situation for us to reproduce in fight or flight. So it really does help to balance out the stress response to have a positive impact on hormonal balance. So a lot of women that I see have a huge amount of progesterone deficiency. It's one of the most common deficiencies or imbalances that I see with women's hormones. It's more common than estrogen dominance, I have to say. I would say at least 80 to 90% of the women that get hormonal testing done within the clinic have progesterone deficiency. And it always stems back to the nervous system and the adrenals, the fight or flight, cortisol, and adrenaline. So we need to focus on those things to balance the hormones out. So yeah, like I mentioned, stress causes inflammation and immune dysregulation. So it actually, cortisol depletes our white blood cell production and it increases our inflammatory cytokines. So we're going to see more inflammation and more immune dysregulation. So you might have noticed that you might have gone through a really kind of stressful period, and then as soon as it starts to kind of abate a little bit, that's when you'll get sick. So the cortisol and adrenaline has this sort of mechanism of stopping you from kind of getting sick. But by the time you do lower that cortisol, you're very vulnerable because your white blood cell count is less. You'll be more susceptible to picking up viruses and that type of thing because of the impacts of cortisol on your immune system. So stress also affects our well-being and our ability to live in the present moment. So an example of this is like something that I can relate back to as a mother of, when I was a mother of young children, was that I was in fight or flight all day. And at the end of the day, I just wanted to get through to that, bedtime so that I could like finally collapse and relax. So that was like when my body was coming out of fight or flight. So because I was so focused on getting to that point, I wasn't really able to live in the present moment and enjoy that moment of, whatever was going on. And I know it can be a hard time in the evening sometimes for women with young children, but, there's still your level of irritability and how you're able to meet those demands, that affects your experience in that moment. And that happens, I know, for a lot of mums. They're in their mind, they've got the mental list of, okay, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, like the list of how they're, what they need to complete before they can actually relax or sit down and get to their time that they think is their time at the end of the day. And that's not living in the present moment. And that kind of mental hamster wheel is actually quite exhausting and probably keeping your body in fight or flight. Other hidden tolls of stress are it can make us feel stuck and unhappy and negative. It's really hard when our body's in that survival mode to be feeling like we're getting the most out of our lives, to be feeling like we're joyful and, full of gratitude. And that's because our body is in that survival mode. So we need to help our body to get out of that survival mode. The hidden tolls of stress, as I mentioned, it's a huge disruptor to women's health. So women's health in ways of the adrenals, our hormones, our gut, and all other kind of aspects of the things that we've mentioned already. It's our bodies as women are not biologically designed to thrive in high cortisol states. It's just not going to be the thing that makes us feel good day in, day out. Women's bodies are designed to thrive in the opposite, in a calm and relaxed sort of state. So say, for example, with progesterone, progesterone is our calming, feel-good kind of hormone, puts us in a really good mood, and it has connections with dopamine. So when we see a reduction of progesterone, not only are we potentially going to experience more imbalance within the hormonal cycle, we're also going to feel flat or tired, and just maybe a little bit down or a little bit depressed because we're not getting those good connections with the neurotransmitters. We also need progesterone to help us with GABA, and GABA production is really important. So GABA is our calming neurotransmitter that supports balance within the nervous system. So it's the opposite to everything when it's pro-stimulatory. It's the relaxing neurotransmitter. So to have good levels of GABA, we've got to have good levels of progesterone. And we also need to have a really good, healthy gut microbiome. So our gut microbiome, there's particular bacteria, healthy bacteria in there, like bifido strains and some of our lactobacilli strains like plantarum and rhamnosus and casei, I think it's called. We need those to be able to produce good levels of GABA and serotonin. So it's really important to have, really good, healthy gut health. But often stress can stop us from having good gut health because we're not digesting well, and we might not be making great food choices because of the level of stress that we're under, but also our microbiome due to lots of other lifestyle factors, medications, there's a lot of things that deplete our microbiome, but that can have a negative impact on our nervous system because of the connections with the gut. So what can we do? Let's talk about that. All right, so I wanted to discuss the importance of routine and why does routine matter? So if you think about your body working in circadian rhythm, so we have our waking time and our sleeping time, our time where cortisol governs the output of this energy. So you can't think about cortisol as being bad, I should say, because it's not. We need cortisol to help with energy, okay? But it's a problem when we're in fight or flight and we produce excess cortisol. That's where the problems lie. So we need a good routine that is going to work with us in terms of what our body needs at different times of the day and at different times of the month for women. So think about it as, okay, a good daily routine, but then you've got to have maybe an overview of your month as well. Now, for women that take birth control, they're getting a standardized dose of progesterone and estrogen every day until they start taking the sugar pills or stopping the hormonally active pills. And then they'll get a drop in those hormones and get a breakthrough bleed. So, or withdrawal bleed. So you're still producing hormones underlying, but it is a little bit more difficult to tap into the natural rhythm of your cycle when you take birth control. If you're not on birth control, what I would get you to think about is the importance of understanding what your body needs in the follicular phase and what your body needs in the luteal phase. So if things are kind of working in sync, you might notice that when your menstruation finishes, in the first couple of weeks of your cycle, you should, if things are in balance, feel quite good. More stable mood, more consistent energy, feeling like you can get stuff done. You can do those tasks that might at some times of the month seem a little bit more, sucking of your energy. Like, for example, I find that if I try to do my bookkeeping work for the business of Empowered Health in the luteal phase, oh my gosh, it's just draining my life. But I can do it in the follicular phase because I have better energy just to get stuff done. So at that time, these are the times where you might think about putting in a little bit more high intensity exercise or being able to do more of that type of thing in that part of your cycle. And then in the luteal phase, we want to make sure that we're keeping the balance of progesterone and estrogen. And in that time, we don't want lots of extreme stress on the body. So, going to F45 4 to 6 times a week is probably not going to work in your favor in the luteal phase. You might just want to drop that back a bit and include some more relaxing type of exercise at that time. So that's working in an overall kind of routine. Understanding what you need based on where you're at hormonally can really help, so you don't inadvertently deplete yourself in the luteal phase and then you're starting a new cycle in a depleted state. But also working with the circadian rhythm. So we can support and influence cortisol and melatonin based on what we decide to do at different times of the day. So the timing of what you do during the day. So think about your morning routine and your nighttime routine. So if you don't have any routine around what you do in the morning and what you do at night, you might find that thinking about some of the things that I'm going to mention might be actually really beneficial. And when it comes to regulating your nervous system, and it doesn't have to be a complex process. Simple things can be huge game changers. So your morning routine, if you think about what you do when you wake up, if you wake up and start scrolling on your phone straight away, you're basically overstimulating cortisol from the light of your screen and kind of getting those quick dopamine hits. That's not really an optimal way to start the day. So this is my advice. This is what I've worked on over the years, how to get optimal nervous system balance. And it might change as well, depending on where you're at with your life and whether you have, what time you start work, or whether you have small kids in the house, or, all of these things. You need to obviously work your routine with what works for you. But a good morning routine is thinking about somehow getting some sunlight on your face in the morning. So that is signaling to your body that, okay, it's time to wake up. It's time to lower that melatonin and switch on your cortisol, okay, to give you just that little bit morning I'm awake kind of energy without the need for caffeine, which is what we might usually do to get that kind of I'm awake feeling. So we want to try and encourage that I'm awake feeling without the use of stimulants. If you're able to, I find the morning is the best time to do your exercise if you can. And you might be thinking, yeah, but I don't get enough sleep, or I feel too tired when I wake up. And that's why we need to work on your nighttime routine. So if you set your day up before you start work or school or whatever it is you do for the day, if you set your day up feeling calm and grounded in the morning, you are going to be able to cope better with whatever happens during your day without sort of flying into fight or flight too quickly. You might still have times where you do have a bit of nervous system overstimulation, depending on what you're dealing with throughout the day, but it will be a lot less if you have a really good morning routine. So this could look like stretching. It could look like going for a 20-minute walk around the block, getting sun on your face, like I mentioned. Getting up straight away, having a shower, maybe having a little bit of a cold shower if you feel like you could tolerate that. But moving your body, getting light on your face, or doing some dry skin brushing for that matter, that's a really great way because it gently is stimulating the body and it's getting your lymphatics going for the day. You might, some people, if they have time, they might like to journal or meditate or do some sort of spiritual type of practice or faith-based practice. It's really good to do that in the morning. You might not have time for all of those. It might sound like a lot, but I would encourage you, if you don't have any of those things going on, is just to pick one or two things that seem to be right for you, that you like the sound of, and just pop them into your morning. And this might mean that you've got to get up 30 minutes or an hour earlier to be able to do some of these things. But I guarantee you, you will have a better day in terms of feeling grounded and calm when you set your day up with a good morning routine. I'll tell you what my morning routine currently looks like at the moment. So I get up and straight away I pop my clothes on to go for a walk, and I get Biscuit, my little gorgeous little cavoodle, and we go for a 25-minute walk. And I do this every single morning. And I'm getting light on my face, I'm moving my body, I'm breathing the fresh air. And by the time I get back, I really feel awake and my energy's feeling good. And then I'll go about, getting ready for the day. It's very simple. It's not a difficult thing. It's just about getting a good routine happening for yourself and trying to stick to it as much as you can. I find as well, any time where you can put any gratitude type of practice into your day as well, whether it's at the start of the day or the end of the day, this has a soothing and calming effect on the nervous system. When you've experienced that feeling of gratitude, your body it's going to have a soothing effect on your nervous system. So that could be something that you might like to think about as well. So your nighttime routine is really important also. So if you're struggling to get up in the morning, then you need a good nighttime routine. And a nighttime routine could look like, turning all the big lights off in your house and having some lamps on or salt lamps on, so you're not getting bright light, reducing. I mean, this is all, you've probably heard all of this before, so I know that it's not anything groundbreakingly new, but sometimes it's good to have a reminder of these things and to examine what you're currently doing and to see where you might be able to make tweaks and changes. And it's the small things that really add up to experiencing less stress in your body. So other things in the nighttime routine, once you've kind of maybe cleaned up after dinner or whatever, and the sun is starting to go down, starting to signal to your body that you're getting ready for bed. Get in your jammies, go and, wash your face or whatever you do, or have a shower. You might, like, reading is a really lovely thing to do for relaxing and, reducing nervous system overstimulation. You might, just look, watching things on telly and things like that is fine as well. But I wouldn't be having a screen right up close in your face. So you definitely need to shut off computer work and try to think about reducing screen time on your phone and that type of thing at least a couple of hours before bed. You might have a nice relaxing herbal tea if you're into that. We'll talk a little bit more about other sort of therapeutic supports that you could consider for the nervous system as well. And those things can be taken at night. If you're in a position where you might do some of these things and you're still experiencing what we would consider stress-associated influences or consequences on your body, like you're having insomnia or, really big issues with energy and fatigue, like this is where, you might need a bit of extra support to be able to get the benefits of a good routine. I know my son wears these blue blocking glasses at night time, so trying to block out the type of light that causes stimulation. And I also find too, so just a little tip that might be helpful. I've got this app called Insight Timer, and Insight Timer has lovely sleep sound kind of music, and it goes off on its own after either 30 minutes or an hour. And if you've got a really busy mind at night and you can't switch off, if you have something like that just going really low, and it will switch off in, in its own time, it really helps to reduce that mental chatter that you might experience in your mind when you're trying to sleep, or the lists of things that go around in your mind and you're finding it hard to switch it off. So you could try something like that as well. And what I've been discussing a lot in the clinic with my patients so far this year is thinking about little circuit breakers throughout the day. Because sometimes, our life is set up the way we've set it up. So with our job, what we do every day, the environment that we're in, and it might not be something that we necessarily want to change or are able to change. So if you're experiencing some of these stress-associated conditions or consequences in the body, or you're feeling a little bit overwhelmed through the day, think about little circuit breakers that you could do throughout the day. So that might be, so say if you're getting really bloated after meals, your body's in fight or flight and you're not digesting food well when you do stop for lunch, maybe if you've got half an hour lunch break, for example, or an hour, go for a little walk. Even if it's like, if you've got a half an hour break, even if it's a 10-minute walk around the block, just get out, get some fresh air. Walking and that thumping of your feet on the pavement, on the ground, it really helps to regulate the nervous system and drop your cortisol levels down. So by the time you come back, you'll be feeling a lot calmer, a lot less cortisol in the body and adrenaline affecting the body because you've walked it out a little bit, and you'll be able to eat lunch then without having such of a stress-associated impact. So that's a really big one, because often people are eating on stress or their quota of cortisol throughout the day. There's been nothing to break that cycle, and we might be sitting all day as well. Think about the buildup of energy that's caused by cortisol and adrenaline. And that might just be because your body is in fight or flight, responding to various things that are going on throughout your day, throughout your screen or your inbox or whatever demands are on you through the day. And you're just sitting there and it's just building. It's building up in your body. So it's little wonder that you're feeling maybe a little bit too overstimulated at night and you can't get to sleep. You've had this buildup of adrenaline and cortisol in your body all day. So we need to work proactively on reducing that down. And that's why these little circuit breakers through the day can just work as little rebalancing mechanisms. It might not be a walk. It might be some deep breathing. It might be some meditation. But movement is really good to shift that buildup of energy and that buildup of cortisol. So anything that you can do that involves movement is going to be helpful for that. Okay, nourishing your nervous system. So if you've seen me in the past, you know that I always talk about food as medicine, and I'm always focusing on what are you eating in the day? How are you nourishing your body? Yes, it is important that we've got a positive relationship with food. And I always encourage patients to think about nourishment. Your body needs nourishment. So we can't expect our bodies to be this endless giving machines and energy just bouncing through the day if we're not fueling it in the right way. And your nervous system is no exception. So under stress, we're using up all of these minerals, B vitamins, magnesium, all of these things to keep the balance within the body and responding to that stress response. It takes up a lot of nutrients, a lot of nutrition. So it's really important that we're fueling and nourishing our bodies in the right way. And when a woman's body is under stress, is under fight or flight, which is pretty much, as I mentioned, most women these days, I don't believe that fasting and that type of thing is very helpful. Your body's already in stress. So I think that the fasting can have a bit of a destabilizing effect. You're not setting up your blood sugar well for the day. And you're probably needing more nourishment, not less. So a lot of the time, women may be doing that. Maybe they've got gut issues, which can be looked at and helped and supported in different ways as opposed to fasting. And they might have those gut issues because of stress. Okay. Women might also be doing fasting because they're trying to manage their weight. And a lot of the time, their weight is going to be impacted in a positive way if they just reduce their cortisol and get better sleep. So women's bodies in response to cortisol is to increase weight around the midsection of the body. And when you're not sleeping as well, this puts an even greater stress on the body because we're still having to muster up this energy within even more increased cortisol throughout the day because we're sleep deprived. And it does nothing to help with, the result or the goals around, managing weight. So that's just a bit of a side note. I would be encouraging women to eat 3 well-balanced meals at the very least, focusing on whole food nutrition with at least 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal. So protein, the amino acids are really important for making neurotransmitters, and obviously for supporting, our physical body, like with our lean muscle and that type of thing. We need amino acids to help with gut repair. Like there's a lot of hormonal production. There's a lot of need for protein. And I do find that, when we're rushing and we're trying to just get through the day, we might not be making time to eat nourishing meals with that much protein because it takes a little bit more effort for meal planning and preparation. That's just another thing that we have to do. So, foods that are higher in carbohydrates are often go-tos because we're running in fight or flight all day. So somewhere we need to take the load off and look at the negotiables, the non-negotiables of our day, of our life, to create a little bit more time and space so that we can take care of ourselves, take care of our bodies, eat in a way that is going to nourish our nervous system instead of add more stress to the nervous system with sugar and caffeine, for example, and high refined carbs. There's certain nutrients that we might want to focus on, which I have listed here on screen. So foods that are high in zinc. So this supports our neurotransmitters to function well and also supports with GABA release. So you do find a lot of zinc in animal-based foods, but you can also get them in nuts. So have a think about how, and seafood, eggs, dairy, have a think about how you could increase those things in your diet. We want foods that are high in magnesium. So magnesium is a beautiful nutrient mineral for the nervous system. And when we've been in higher stress states, we are actually going to need more of it. So our dark green leafy veg, dark chocky, avocados, some nuts and seeds there, and some fruits. B vitamins, you can see there, it's all similar sort of stuff, really, except for the omega-3 fatty acids in our salmon, mackerel, tuna, flaxseed, chia seeds, walnuts. Whole foods is what you need to focus on, basically. A whole food diet with every meal having a good portion of protein, some healthy fats, and the right type of carbohydrates. So complex carbohydrates mostly. And within that carbohydrate intake, I would encourage, at least 70% to be veggies and fruits, and even some root vegetables like potatoes and sweet potatoes. They are great for the nervous system and for grounding us. And, maybe 30% coming from grains. And if you are having grains, good quality whole grains or fermented grains like sourdough and that type of thing, depending on what your body can tolerate. Theanine is also another thing that I love for the nervous system. And you'll find, I didn't actually know this when I was looking into it, that we can get theanine from mushrooms, but definitely in green tea and matcha. So if you've ever theanine is in normal black tea as well. If you've ever sort of felt comforted by a cup of tea, it's probably because of the theanine. So it's very calming and relaxing for your nervous system. Okay, so regulating your nervous system. So this is what you need to think about. If you're like, yep, I definitely think my nervous system is in fight or flight a lot of the time. What can I do about it? What do I need to look into? And you might be on, of a scale of how that's impacting you. It might be a little bit, or it might be quite a lot. So first, for yourself, you need to uncover the destabilizing influences from the gut and the hormones and the diet. So like I mentioned before, I'm sorry, I know it's 7:30 now, so I hope you can all stay on to the end. We're nearly done. Regulating your nervous system, yes. Destabilizing influences from the gut and your hormones. So if you've got some gut issues, any kind of symptom that's popping up like bloating or issues with bowel motions, or you definitely feel that your gut is influenced by stress when you are under stress, thinking about understanding the balance of your gut and the gut microbiome could be a really important thing for you to look into. So we do microbiome gut testing, where we can look at gut function. We can look at various microbes that can overgrow and be problematic in the gut, which can also, have neuroinflammatory effects and dysregulate your nervous system a little bit, different parasites and that type of thing. And we also look at the balance of your healthy microbiome. So the things that I mentioned before about the healthy strains, the bifidobacterium strains, the lactobacilli strains, if you are lacking those, which a lot of people are these days, you need to work on building up your healthy microbes to have a positive influence on the nervous system as well as the gut. You need to think about your hormones, especially for women. So understanding your progesterone. Consider looking into getting your progesterone tested if you feel like, yes, you need some help with creating a calmer nervous system. So gut and hormones are huge. These are definitely prime kind of areas within the body that they can affect the nervous system, and the nervous system can affect them. So there's that crossover relationship and connection between those two things. If you are experiencing more stress in your body, especially in the luteal phase, so any issues with mood, short cycle or sleep, or more anxiety in that time, definitely get your progesterone tested. In a 28, 29-day cycle, you want to look at getting it tested on day 21. So you can do that with your blood. So you just need to make sure that you get bloods taken on the right day, on that day 21, if you can. Or, a practitioner like myself, we do saliva hormone testing, which looks at all of the hormones plus the progesterone at that time of the month. And getting your diet sorted. So eating for nourishment, eating well-balanced meals, eating enough protein, not skipping meals, and kind of reducing the processed refined foods, reducing things like caffeine. If you are going to have caffeine, always eat first and then have caffeine. Slowing down the pace of your life. I know this is a hard one because, we often fill our life and commit ourselves to so many different things that when the cracks start to show, we feel like we can't drop the ball on anything. So we have to get very intentional about what we want our life to look like in terms of the pace of our life, what is realistic and what is just really pushing the envelope and not good for our health and well-being. We might want to do all the things, we might want to be all for everybody, but the facts is that it can have negative consequences on your health, and we might not be able to keep that pace up. I definitely found after turning 40 that I had to reduce the pace of my everyday. It was too fast paced, even after having that nervous system issue that I had that I shared with you. I built my vitality and my energy and the balance in my body up to be really, really strong. But even then I was sort of still, pushing it a little bit, and I had to look at changing that when I turned 40. So think about the pace of your life. Where are your negotiables? Where are your non-negotiables? And try to, consider the negotiables as reducing it down. It might just be that you stop doing those extra household chores when you don't absolutely need to. My non-negotiables are, I've got to have a clean floor, but, I might be able to negotiate when I do other things, so I'm not pushing my body too hard. You've got to be kind to yourself. Set up good routines, like we mentioned, with the morning routine and the nighttime routine and those little circuit breakers, and get good sleep. So if you don't sleep well, we need to try to understand why that is. Reducing the cortisol output throughout the day is a very good start. But we might need to look at balancing hormones as well to be supportive for consistent good sleep. Move your body in the right way at the right times. So like I mentioned, you know, really pushing your body super hard, going for runs or going and doing high intensity exercise at certain times of the month might not be good. It might actually deplete your body further and result in nervous system dysregulation. But also, you know, exercising, doing high intensity exercise at nighttime might also stimulate cortisol, and you might be waiting quite a little bit more time for that to drop down so you can get to sleep. So, you know, tap into when your body naturally would be higher in cortisol, which is in the morning, if you can. Eat for nourishment. We just mentioned all of that. So food is medicine at the end of the day. I know everyone says that, everyone talks about that. But the reality is that when we have a lot of things going on in our lives, when we're really busy, when we're a bit stressed, when we're stretched in other ways, the nutrition can sometimes be the first thing to drop off for people. So just trying to get a good routine with that. Meal prepping, planning, like plan your grocery list. So when you're going to the shops, plan, what am I doing for my breakfasts? What am I doing for my lunches? Just get a few good protein sources that you can put with. Like my quick option, you know, I mean, I like to do leftovers for my lunches, but if I don't have leftovers, I'll do tuna and avocado on, you know, maybe some corn thins or my gluten-free precinct toast. You know, it's proteins, fats, and good carbs. You don't have to do gourmet meals or, you know, like being imaginative during the week when you really just need to eat a well-balanced diet, proteins, fat, carbs with all of your meals as much as possible. So if needed, look into natural support from a professional for the most reliable supplements, or the most suitable supplements, I should say, for you. So it's not a one size fits all when it comes to supplementation. There, you might need, you know, you might need more B vitamins. You might have issues with breaking them down and absorbing them and activating them with the MTHFR gene mutation. You might need more magnesium. You might benefit more from magnesium, but which type of magnesium do you need? Glycinate, citrate, threonate. These are all very good for the nervous system, but they're going to have slightly different effects on the body. You might need more adrenal regulation support. So, you know, I would look at putting in a herbal tonic for the morning for someone when I'm trying to regulate their adrenals and their sleep cycles. And then I use an adrenal tonic at night, but they've got different things in them because we want to do different things at different times of the day. For acute stress or acute anxiety, herbal medicine has an amazing impact on this. So our anxiolytic herbs that we have a beautiful, relaxing, soothing, stress-reducing action on the body. And you might be in a time and place in your life where you need that a little bit more, depending on what's going on in your life. So it's knowing the types of supports that you can use, because we have access to these things within nature, but it's the right thing for the right person. And it's really important to make sure that you've got someone helping you with that. I would much prefer that than people self-prescribing and trying things and, you know, maybe making the situation worse, or maybe they're spending money on stuff and they're not getting the results that they want. It's just because they're not taking the right things for their particular situation. Same with hormonal balancing and the gut. So when we're looking at balancing and influencing the health of those two areas and systems, there's different natural things that you can take that are going to be really beneficial in the short term and helping your body to balance that. And keep learning. Consider diving deeper into learning about your nervous system, because I can guarantee you, when you learn to regulate your nervous system, it can literally reduce so many negative impacts on your health. It can prevent and avoid you from having, you know, health-related consequences because your body is struggling under the load of things, or the nervous system dysregulation. So diving deeper into it, learning about your nervous system is a wonderful way to learn how to support your health, nourish your body, and be at your optimum. Have a, you know, less stress than what you had last year, basically. And you can do this in many different ways. I do have an online course called Anxiety Breakthrough. And really, it just dives a lot deeper into nervous system regulation. So all of the things that I've touched on tonight, I've got modules on each section that dives so much deeper in that. So, you know, if anyone is interested, I can send you the link for that if you want to have a look at it. The course is it's $80 to do the course, and there's about, I think, 5 modules in it from memory. But it's on my Empowered Health _ Emma Instagram page. So if you want to check it out, please go ahead. Or if you've got any questions, let me know. So I'm going to stop the share now. Yeah, so in conclusion, that was a lot that we just went through. I really do hope that you got something out of that, something to take away and try. If you know you're wanting to have your body in a better place than it was last year, moving into a new year, understanding your nervous system, understanding the areas that you might need to focus on individually or personally to help to balance your nervous system, to experience more calm, more groundedness. It's possible. You just need to know, what you need, and trying to kind of work with the rhythms of your body. Often we don't realize that we're actually working against the rhythms of our body. So I just want to thank you so much for joining me tonight. I do hope that it was beneficial, and please, reach out to me. I am on Instagram, Empowered Health _ Emma. Reach out to me if you've got any questions or if I can be of any further help. I am going to